to my channel. My name is Sarah. It is Friday evening. I've just finished work and I'm so ready for this weekend. It's been such a stressful week and it's really hot and sunny today in Scotland. It seemed to go from winter and not having the heating on to like 22-23 degrees just overnight. It's absolutely roasting, but I cannot complain because it's so nice to see some sunshine and feel just warmth on my body. So this weekend, like I said, it's been really busy in work and stuff this week, so I thought I'd just have a bit of a slow weekend. I was going to stay at home, but I think because the weather's so nice I might go somewhere for a little walk, maybe a swim. I haven't decided yet, but yeah, that's my plans. And I'm going to film just a really casual reading vlog. I normally sort of want my vlogs to be kind of perfect, where I want to make sure I start a book and finish a book within sort of the time span of the vlog, but I'm not going to do that this weekend. I'm just going to film over the 48 hours, and if I finish a book, great. If I don't, then it doesn't matter, I can still talk about it even though I haven't finished it. So I have a few books on the go at the moment. On audio I'm listening to Sealed by Naomi Booth, which I'm loving. It's so good. I'm reading The Marriage Act by John Mars on my Kindle, which is fine. I don't have a huge amount of feelings about that. I'm reading The Sea by Iris Murdoch. I have that in a physical copy that I don't have right here with me now, but that I'm actually probably not going to talk about in this vlog because I'm reading it more for a vlog that I'm doing that's a slow reading vlog. And I mean, I've been reading that book for more than a month now, so I'm kind of taking the slow, like very literally. But I'm reading that, and I'm also reading The Bee Sting by Paul Murray, which is close to being a DNF, I think, which is really sad. I'm going to try it on audio, I think, so I'm kind of, yeah, I probably won't read that one this weekend. Maybe I will, maybe I'll read a bit of it, but yeah, like I said, I'm going to try it on audio, and then if I'm still not sort of gelling with it, then I think I will put that one down. It's a really long book, so I'm definitely not going to finish it in that time, but may read a bit, may not. I'll talk to you sort of more about the books like when I do a dedicated update, because it is so hot in this room. I just want to go and open the window, but it's too loud if I have the window open. So yeah, I think now that I finished work, I'm going to go and sit in the garden with a drink and just enjoy the sun, plan my day for tomorrow, and just enjoy a really slow reading weekend. So it's now Tuesday. This idea of it being a weekend reading vlog kind of failed, but I'm going to keep filming anyway. I'm just going to make it sort of as long as it is. I'm working from home today and filming this on my lunch, hence the unwashed hair and just general appearance. I tend to not even put even a scrap of makeup on when I'm working from home, so like this is something. I've also got a new phone. I've got the iPhone 15 and it is haunting to see just my face in quality like this because my old phone was not great. And yeah, it's taking some getting used to, but we're just gonna go with it. At the weekend, what did I do? Nothing much. I didn't go for my walk, and I didn't go for my swim, just because I didn't really feel like it. I stayed up way past my bedtime on Friday night because we saw the Northern Lights from our back garden, which is amazing. I say saw, it was a kind of pinky haze in the sky, but through my phone it looked incredible. So I'm just gonna take that as a win, and now I can just cross the Northern Lights off my bucket list. Who needs to go to Finland or Iceland when you can just watch it from your back garden in Livingston? So yeah, did that on Friday and was really tired on Saturday. I was going to go to Calendar, which is kind of near to where I live. I was going to go for a walk and a swim there, and then I was like, can't be arsed. Do I go to North Berwick? Nope, can't be arsed. So I just stayed at home and did some gardening all weekend, which is admittedly really nice too. So I did go on quite a nice walk to the garden centre. So it's about a half an hour walk from me through like woods and like woodland. And it's a nice walk, and I had a nice treat going out for a coffee and just taking some time to myself. Bought some new plants for my garden. I've been feeling a bit down about my garden recently because I missed like the window for planting stuff because I was so unwell earlier in the year, and the weather hasn't been great. This has been like the first weekend where it's been like actually properly nice. But yeah, I got it tidied up, cut back some of my flowers, replanted. I have some hydrangea growing in pots. I replanted those like actually in the soil now that they're established. And they look like they're gonna flower this year, which is exciting. Cut back my lavender, the smell was incredible, so excited for that to flower. And then just bought a few like smaller plants. I got some bedding plants, which I don't really like to buy because like they're just designed to last for the one season, and they're growing in big greenhouses. It's not great for the environment, but I just bought 2 packs of bedding plants to go where my daffodils were. So I cut back my daffodils because they'd sort of died and were looking a bit brown and yellow, and I mean it might feel a little bit too early to cut them back. I'm hoping they'll still come back next year, but they just looked a mess, so I cut them back, and sort of where they will be in spring, it's now just like some bedding plants, just to give it a bit of colour over the summer, so it's not just completely bare. And I did some weeding and just generally gave it a tidy. It's still nowhere near finished. I've got a lot to do because like I said, I just haven't really been able to do anything to it over winter, but it looks like at least some of my plants are gonna survive. So yeah, that's a win. So yeah, we sat outside and ate our tea and played some board games, and yeah, it's just a really nice chilled cozy weekend. And I'm kind of glad I didn't go anywhere because like I said, I got a lot done in the garden, which was much needed. And I did finish reading The Marriage Act by John Mars. I unfortunately didn't like this. So my main problem is we're following a lot of different perspectives. So this is set in a kind of near future. One of the protagonists mentions that he was listening to like bands from his 20s like Oasis and Blur, so I'm guessing like people who are like in their 40s now are like now in their 80s, so like 40 years or so in the future, I would say. And we're in a kind of, it's billed as like a post-discrimination society, so we've kind of like solved the problems of like sexism and homophobia and racism, except we haven't really. It's discrimination, like you could definitely argue still exists, it's just more insidious than it is now, I suppose. And the sort of oppressed group of people like that we're focusing on in this novel is single people. So there's an act been passed called the Marriage Act, and it really not just encourages you, it kind of like bullies you into marrying essentially, because you get all kinds of like benefits from being married, like cheaper mortgage, cheaper tax rates. If you're single, you can be passed up for like job promotions and job opportunities, and they can be passed over to married people. And it's a very kind of like right-wing, you're really being monitored kind of society. If you sign up to what's called like a smart marriage, which is like an upgrade of a marriage and gives you sort of better benefits and a better standing, so like you can move to a newer part of the town where there's better housing and just better education, and there's basically now like two classes of citizen, I suppose, like those who've upgraded their marriage and those who haven't or choose to remain single. But if you choose to upgrade your marriage, you agree to have an audit installed in your home, which is basically like, it functions like an Alexa, but it can also listen in to your conversations, and if an algorithm deems you to be not getting on in your marriage, so if the algorithm detects kind of like you using certain words to each other or like sort of tones of voice and things like that, it can put you on like a level 1, which is when you are very closely monitored. So your conversations will be listened to by an algorithm, and it'll send you like push notifications throughout the day to sort of try and get you to better your relationship, but just like encouraging you to like listen to each other and compromise and things like that. Then you'll move on to the next step, which is I think when a relationship responder sort of moves into your home or can move into your home, so someone like a relationship counsellor essentially can like move into your home, and like they decide then whether you will be divorced or whether you will be able to continue your relationship. And if you're sort of forced to divorce, then you lose sort of all the benefits of being married in a society that values like a traditional family setup over everything else. There are lots of different perspectives in this. We're following, let me try and get my head around it. So there's a guy who's a relationship responder, there's a guy who works for the government on one of their like projects, there's a woman who's part of the Freedom for All movement, which is like the opposition party. It's very much like a dual party system that is set up in the UK, and it's not even like right and left wing, it's just like marriage and anti-marriage people. So we follow a woman who's part of that organisation. We follow an old man and his wife who've refused to upgrade their marriage, and they're being sort of targeted by a relationship responder. We follow a social media influencer. So the book opens with the suicide of the most prominent sort of social media influencer, who's like a mouthpiece for the government and really supports their Marriage Act and tries to get as many people as she can signed up. She dies by suicide because she can't take the abuse that she's getting from people for what she's doing. And then we have this other woman who kind of is trying to take on her role essentially. And yeah, it's very confusing, I think. Not confusing, just there's a lot of different perspectives and we don't get a lot of time with each of the people. I think that's where it really fell flat for me, was that we're just not getting well-rounded people. A lot of the criticisms I've seen is that these people aren't likeable, and that's true, but it doesn't really matter to me. You have some people who are completely unlikable and very sort of caricaturesque in their behaviours, I think, and some people who are just like, nah, don't like you or dislike you, which is worse. I think because we're following all these different people and the only thing that really connects them is like they're all living in the aftermath of the social media influencer Jam Jones, who's died by suicide, and that's kind of like the big story because she dies on a live stream, so she kills herself while people are watching essentially, and that's the only thing connecting them apart from like their sort of where they live geographically. Some of these people are in the old part of town, some of them are in the new part of town, depending on like whether they've upgraded their marriage or not. And I think this would have worked better maybe as a series of short stories that are like interconnected, but you get the entire narrative of each person like sort of in one block rather than jumping between lots of different people, because it's just, each chapter is very short and we're just not getting much time with each of the characters, and it's very jarring, I think, to jump between them. I didn't think the plot itself was that great. The concept is interesting. I think there are lots of like plot holes and just things that weren't necessarily particularly well executed to me. I didn't think it was that compelling. It was potentially a little bit on the nose, like it's a very obvious allegory for like what if our current government sort of evolved into this, and like I got that to an extent. There's a lot of terminology used, like levelling up and like things that the Tory government say, and I got it as a kind of piece of sort of speculation, I guess, of what could happen if we allow sort of the rise of right-wing politics within the UK specifically to sort of run rampant, I guess. But the argument I just didn't find particularly convincing, and like what actually happened like with this marriage act I just didn't think was all that convincing. Yeah, a little bit too on the nose with the terminology, like I said, levelling up. There's a reference made to they're talking about something and it's like, oh, our final solution for this will be this, and it's just like the final solution reference is a very obvious like Nazi symbolism reference, and yeah, overall I just wasn't that impressed with it. I thought it was very over the top and not convincing. The logic didn't convince me, and yeah, it was unfortunate. The writing was fine. It was easy enough to read, not necessarily the most compelling thing. There's a few like twists and turns, but yeah, overall I gave it 2 stars. It wasn't like really bad. I finished it. It just, yeah, it just really fell flat for me, and unfortunately I don't think I would read anything else by this author based on the writing style. So yeah, that is unfortunate. I haven't read any more of The Bee Sting and probably won't for now. I'm still not sort of hard DNFing it, but I am going to listen to it on audio, or try it on audio. About an hour left of Sealed by Naomi Booth. I'm conscious that I've been just rambling now for 15 minutes about a book that I didn't really like, so I'm probably gonna talk about that one like after I finished it. But it's so good. I love it. I'm listening to it on audio. The narrator's so good. It's so creepy. Yeah, I'm just really enjoying that one, so I'll talk more about that one when I finished it, I guess. But now I can see emails and Teams messages piling up, which is never a healthy thing to check when you're on your lunch break, but I should get back to it and I will catch up with you soon. So I'm just coming to edit that part, and I've just remembered there's a part of the book that basically you can sign up to a program that matches you with like your DNA match, so it's like the one person in the world that you're meant to be with, and it will match you up with that person, and that isn't a huge, I think that's really interesting, like that this like thing exists, but it's not really given a lot of time in the book, and we just know that people are matched through this and we like get an insight into their relationship, but that's it really. Yeah, I would have liked more from that, so that was another disappointment in the novel, but that was yeah, kind of the reason why I picked it up. But yeah, it just ended up been a bit of a flop, unfortunately. Update from my desk because I can't be bothered setting up all my filming equipment, and I really hope you can't see the mess that is my desk, because if you can, I will be truly ashamed. And also ignore any like notifications you hear going off. I'm just in the dreaded, like, someone's just teamed me and said, "Hello Sarah, how are you?" And you just know when you get that message and like nothing else, it's gonna be a shit show. So yeah, ignoring that. And I'm going to film my final update for this vlog. I finished reading Sealed and I really enjoyed it. I did think, unfortunately, I didn't enjoy the last 20% or so, I would say, as much as I enjoyed the rest of the book. I just think the pacing really changed. It was quite slow until the last 20% or so, and then lots happens at once, and I think that was always going to happen. But yeah, I just much preferred the parts where it was slower building. So we're following a character called Alice, who is pregnant, and her boyfriend Pete, and they live in this, or they lived in the city, and they just moved to a very rural place. It's set in Australia. And just moved to a very rural place away from the city because there is an outbreak of a disease called cutis, and this causes your skin to seal over, so it can affect like basically any of your orifices. So yeah, there's going to be a fair amount of body horror in this book, you can tell from the outset. I'm a very squeamish person and I didn't think it was that bad. I was still able to read it, I just felt a bit like grossed out by it, but it could have been worse. So that's the basic premise, and when they get to the middle of nowhere, they're hoping that they've outrun this disease, and they'll be able to have the baby in sort of peace and safety. Alice is very concerned with, because they don't know what the cause of cutis is, she's just very concerned with like carcinogens and food that she should be eating, and she's worried about everything basically, and what kind of impact that can have on her unborn child and on herself as well. Pete is very much like just brushing her off, and just thinks that she's overreacting a bit. He's very dismissive of her and not a particularly supportive person. I think Naomi Booth did a really good job of writing Pete in particular, because he just seems so real and so annoying. I mean, Alice is quite annoying, and I don't think either of them are particularly likeable characters, but Pete is just insufferable. I hated him, but he was such a good character. And I've mentioned already, I think, that the audiobook narration for this was really, really good. And I loved the narrator. She has an Australian accent, and yeah, just really brought the characters to life, I think. And but I think particularly with Pete, just the way she did like the kind of drawling like babe and stuff was just like really, really good. And I could definitely picture him as a character. So yeah, they get to the middle of nowhere, and everyone's a bit kind of hostile with them, and it's just like, why have you come here? They realise quite soon that everything's shutting down, like hospitals and doctor surgeries and social services and all kinds of things like that, and people are being sent to camps essentially. They're being displaced by sort of extreme heat events. So it's very much like a climate change novel as well as a like pandemic novel of sorts. It was written a few years before COVID, I think, and it's quite realistic, I think, in terms of how it portrays like people's reactions to a pandemic. I thought that was really good, and yeah, it was just so sinister. There's a real sense of just dread that sort of permeates the novel. I really liked the juxtaposition of the body horror of the cutis and like body horror of just like carrying a child, and how much of an alien experience that is, and like it is kind of horrible. Like it's amazing, but like being pregnant is a horror a lot of the time. I'm glad I read this after having given birth, and like when I'm at the point in my life where I think I'm probably not going to have any more children, because if I'd read this before I'd just be like, ooh, that's gross. I don't want to do that. So yeah, my son's very lucky that I didn't read this at a more formative point in my life. And yeah, it was really good. The atmosphere, just, yeah, I really liked it. Like I said, the action sort of builds up towards the end, and everything sort of happens at once, but you're kind of like, it's mirroring a pregnancy, I suppose, and just how those days kind of like stagnate and sort of drag on, but also are kind of terrifying. I think it was really good, just kind of like how your perception of time changes when you're pregnant, and your perception on life. And I think it just did a really good job of like talking about how pregnancy changes you as a person, not just physically, but also like it changes sort of who you are as a person, I would say. All that's to say, I really enjoyed it. It was very scary without being very plotty and action-packed, and without too much sort of explicitly graphic body horror. There was enough, but not too much, I don't think. It wasn't gratuitous to me. It felt very realistic to me, and that was part of the horror. And I liked the way it tackled kind of themes of like racism and class disparity and colonialism, and just it tackled a lot of those kind of topics in a way that was very nuanced, I would say. So yeah, definitely enjoyed that. I will say I started reading reviews before I'd fully formed like my own opinion, and I saw a lot of Australians saying that the depictions of Australia maybe weren't necessarily the best, like Australian vernacular in particular, and that when I read that I did think it was a bit weird that she chose to set it in Australia. I just assumed that Naomi Booth was Australian, but she's not, she's British. So yeah, that was something that kind of like soured it a little bit for me, because I trust what people say when I have no experience of those things. But yeah, I don't know how good the Australian vernacular is and thus the depiction of Australia is, because I've never been, and I've never lived there, and I'm not Australian. So yeah, that is one thing to note. But yeah, overall I really enjoyed this. I think I'm going to end the vlog there. Thank you very much for watching. Let me know what you've been reading recently. Let me know if you saw the Northern Lights. I'd love to see sort of how far south it was spotted, because it's quite rare for it to be seen. I'm in like southern Scotland, and it's quite rare for it to be seen like from your back garden in like this far south. But I know it's been spotted like even further south within like Europe. So yeah, I'd like to know if you saw them and where you're from. If you've got this far and don't know what to comment, maybe you could leave me a star emoji because there were lots of stars in the sky when I saw the Northern Lights. I don't know, leave whatever emoji you want. But yeah, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you again in another video. Bye.